Hello, good morning. It is Lisa from Lisa's Paper Hearts. It is foggy today. Well, not really foggy, I guess. Cloudy, rainy, cold. It's late summer. You never know in September. It could be chilly like it is today, where it's in the 60s, or it could be 100 degrees. We've had both at this time in September. Yesterday was a beautiful day. I think 70s. The weekend was really beautiful, Labor Day weekend. And now here we are, kind of back to work, except me, I took an extra day off, but kind of back to work, and it's a little bit gloomy out. Over the weekend, I worked on this journal. This cover is made with a Stencil Girl Products Monthly Stencil Club stencil, and I had seen somebody else make a book cover from it, and I thought it would be super cool. I did it on a file folder. But then in my measuring, I had all kind of in my head how I was going to measure it. And I actually should have added more in the middle here. But I didn't. So I have a really short flap here. My plan was to have a longer flap. But I get into it and didn't end up with a longer flap. And I just said, the heck with it. It's still super cool. I'm not going to just toss it out. So I kept with my plan, knowing that if I wanted to make another one, I'd make it with a longer flap. So this is a thinner journal too, again, because I knew I didn't have a lot of flap space. I used this really pretty eyelash yarn for my signatures. And then usually I'll put the signature strings on the inside of the journal and just have the stitching on the outside, but because this was so fabulous and I thought it really went well with the textures and sparkle of the cover, that I kept it on the outside. So yeah, this cover too, I did lots of mixed media on here. So this was a file folder that I painted with this copper colored acrylic paint. I have Nuvo paste on here. I have glitter. I'll show you, I guess. Let me get out my stuff so you can kind of see what I've used. So I used this Nuvo Glimmer paste. That's like you can see that here. I have a few colors of this. When it goes on sale, I try to pick some up sometimes. Then I also used this Nuvo Glitter Embellishment Mousse. That was this orange and this kind of yellowy green. That was that. And also this darker color. I also did some foiling. To do the foiling, I have this Deco Foil transfer gel. So I put that through the stencil. You let it dry, really, till it gets clear, and then it's super sticky. And then I put my foil. So I have just like these rolls of foil. You can see I used this purple on here. As you can see, there's the shapes right there. So you just press it in, rub it in real good. I could have used heat too, but I didn't use heat because I had too many other things on there. But that's what I did for that. Then I also have, here is some, let's see where else here. This green is actually embossing powder that I put down with texture paste, not the crackle. This texture paste. That was the matte. It came in a pack of 3. Here it is. This is the one I used. This texture paste translucent grit. This is a Ranger Tim Holtz product. And this translucent is kind of a clearish. And so I put that down and then put the embossing powder kind of on it. I press it in a little bit. I don't mix it a whole lot. Again, let it dry and then use the embossing heat gun. They worked really good with the green. The red, for some reason, didn't stick down as well, so I ended up then touching it up. I have these Distress embossing pens. So for this one, I know I touched it up a little bit and put a second layer of embossing powder down and then just shot it with the heat gun. So I did that. So that's kind of how I got all these different textures on here. This one was just the, this was embossing. So I did just embossing powder, and I have this Distress Embossing Dauber. So I just did that through the stencil to get the leaves. So that was all embossing dauber. And just a nice green embossing powder. And then this was again that crackle paste. For that one I did not use the matte. I used the crackle. This one. To get these. But I did mix, put brown embossing powder down. And then again shot it with the heat gun. So that's how I did those. These butterflies, oddly enough, are Sizzix Tim Holtz butterflies also. I have this Rinea paper, which cuts in the machine like butter. It's really awesome. And I also have these little wax things that you put down to keep them from sticking in the metal die when you have really fine metal dies. But these are really pretty too. And the backside isn't really waxy, so I kept all of those, and I just kept cutting so that I'd use up all the metal sheets. This one still has a little bit of stuff and I have to pop out. But I have a whole bunch of these metal butterflies. And the Rinea paper is really cool because not only is it foily, but it also holds shape. There's a little bit of a metalness to it, so I could make some really cool 3D things with this if I chose to. All right, so my journal. Let's open it up so you can see. This is waxed thread and buttons to hold it closed for my closure. I was debating on if I wanted to put more, just because, again, it was short. But I felt like 2 seemed to do the trick. Here is, again, that same stencil I used on the inside with a different color of acrylic paint. These buttons support that. I didn't want them to rip through, so I put buttons on both sides. Gives it a little more stability on the closure. But this was, again, that sticky paste, the Decofoil paste, and then this is Decofoil. Here's one of my butterflies. This one I did a little different. I don't know if you can tell, but it's got a little bit of more holographic to it, and it's a little bit purple at the bottom. So this actually, I took a sheet of sticky paper and just stuck a sheet of foil onto it and then ran it through my machine. So this one I did a little bit different to give it a little bit more texture, a little different color. I don't know if you can see in here. So this rainbow I did with my gel press plate. I was going crazy. I had never done dye inks or hybrid inks even on my gel press plate before. And I had these really cool Altair Ink on 3 Artist Grade Fusion inks. So I started with those. Then I also used some of my Tim Holtz Distress inks, not the oxides, but the Distress inks. And I would go on the plate, and then I found with the brayer, I could actually make this kind of rainbowy effect. And so I did lots like that. I have lots of pages like that, and I just loved it. Then I also did a little bit of spray and stencil. So you can see this butterfly stencil here. That's a Stencil Girl stencil too. There's even a little bit of other stencil, I think, from something else where I had stenciled and then set the wet stencil on to give it that kind of negative effect. And this is just music paper. I did this with a gel press plate. Also, this was, they call these, I have one down here. They call these impressibles. So you can see I actually used 2 impressibles on here. This circles impressible and this square impressible is on there too. But then, and it looked really cool, but I couldn't write on it because it was too dark. So I just took some of this sewing paper and I decoupaged it on. So you can still see the pattern and the music, but it gives it a little bit of strength, and I can now write on it and mutes it down a little bit. This one still looks like it. So this is also that foil. I tried to glue this down with these sheets of sticky dots. These things, or sticky specks, which are super cool, but this is almost, I guess, too intricate. So I had a lot of extra sticky specs, and I spent a long time trying to pick them up with my little eraser thing that picks up the sticky. So I tried doing that, but it's apparently still a little sticky. But this was another one where I used the sheet of foil, so you can see that transition of color, which is super cool. This is a letter. I cut it, again, the same shape as that stencil edge. So if you look at this stencil edge, this is really that shape and stencil that I used on there. This is the letter I bought at a box of letters at an estate sale. This is, I think, was the envelope the letter probably was in. So you can see that's kind of cool and fun. Airmail, 8 cents. Gives you an idea of the time frame. Some of these tags I made. Some of these tags I did not. I had gotten from Tag Swaps. This is a Tag Swap tag, but I thought it went really well. So I stuck that right in here, and I could journal on the back, which is nice. You can see here's the center of my signature and my cool fun thread. This tag also I got in a swap. It's got a little sparklies. It's got butterflies on it. This I threw together pretty quick, comparatively to how long it usually takes me to do a journal, just because I had a lot of the pieces done, right? I had these papers done from before. The thing that took me the longest was the cover, because it's really a lot of like putting, drying. It took days for me to get this done, just because of all the layers and the drying that had to happen in between. So of course I did other stuff in between there, but the cover itself probably took me the whole of this long weekend to really get done. Here's the back of the letter. This is a train order. So this is other paper I got at an estate sale. I don't know what the railway system used these for. Some kind of order sheets. It looks like they could trade through them or whatever. I got a whole stack of them, and they're all really cool because they're this thin, like tissuey paper. So they're great to put on top of stuff because they give me the lines if I want to use it for journaling. Plus you can still see through, which I thought was cool. I also put some Distress Oxide ink on here just to give it a little interest and texture. These inks were so wet they soak even through a little bit. Here's another inking sheet that I put another stencil over the top of. This is also a Stencil Girl stencil. I think I only used Stencil Girl stencils in this one. Some glitter tape. This, again, is that kind of tissuey, crunchy paper. This is a patent receipt. And this is a Stencil Girl stencil that I did. Originally, I had used this paper to kind of soak up extra inks, and then I stenciled over the top of it. Here, this is a stamp. This is not a Stencil Girl stamp. I think this is a Technique Junkies stamp. This is a I actually have, most people use, regular dictionaries for their junk journaling, not me. I have a dictionary of gastronomy that's super thick. So this one is a chapter about wine. It's talking about Lower Rhine and all the places where you could get wines. Here's another one of those railway receipts. I did some stenciling behind here, another Stencil Girl stencil, but it was really dark. So I liked that this kind of brightened it up. Here's another envelope. This one I did dipping in ink, and then I wanted to put something else on it, so I put again some of this Nuvo embellishment mousse, but really thin, so you can use it almost like a paint as well. So I tried to use it as a paint here to kind of mute out some of that bright color a little bit, so that I could decoupage this piece of napkin over the top. It's still a little bit hard to see, but I can see it pretty well. Here's a nice little tag in there. This, I think, was from a Tag Swap too. This is an awesome stamp I have. This is a Gina K Designs stamp that I saw her demo and I just had to have it because it seemed like so versatile. There's all kinds of different, I'll show you the stamp because I have it here. All kinds of different kind of macrame looks. I had done a junk journal of Boston, and we spent a day on like a pirate ship, and this I thought really worked well for boats. This would work well if you're talking about like backstage at a theater. It's really pretty, and I just fell in love with the texture of it. And so here's that. Here's some more of that embellishment mousse I put on there just for interest. Here's that stamp again. You can see here, you have the ability, like here's where that is, and then I could put the tassels on. So there's that. This tag is a tag that I made, or a little block. I'm debating if I need to put something on the back or not, but so far I didn't. So that has butterflies on. That's a different stamp. That might be a Technique Tuesday stamp. I'm not sure. Sewed this fabric on. Right, there's a doily back there. Just one of those little junk journal things you make ahead to stuff into something, and when you find the thing, you stuff it in. Right, and I like that texture with this texture, so I thought that was cool. And here's the back side of that patent. You can see this is a copy of the patent. All right, I put some washi tape on there just because this paper is kind of thin, and I didn't, just from flipping it around and stuff, I didn't want it to get worn out super fast, so I put that on. This is from a book I got, I think at clearance for half price books, maybe at their annual book sale where all the books are like $2 or less, maybe a few that are $5. But it's a super big clearance. I might have even gotten it at that. They didn't do it this year because of COVID, which is a bummer, but it forced me to really use the ones that I have up, which is probably a good thing. This is actually a book about horses and horse gear, so you can see on the other side is the saddles. This might have been different length of whips or something. I don't know. We'll see what's on the back side. But so here's saddles. This is Distress ink that I used on here. This is another Technique Junkies stamp, I think. Some washi tape, because this is old music paper. This music paper, when I was kind of zapping it dry, it got a little bit cracked, so I had to use washi just to kind of hold it together, because it's super old from this. I have another book that I got, I think, at a clearance sale of some kind. That's all in Italian. This is all in Italian here. This, again, I used those impressibles for the circles, all different colors, which is really fun. I picked them up off the gel plate when I had that same kind of rainbow technique with the gel plate. Did a couple courses like that on there. There's also, I don't know if you can really tell, but that same stencil, this is here in spray. So I used for that this Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. That's what I used there. Here's another one of these amazing butterflies. This, I think, is a book about house maintenance, and this is, I think, the chapter on plumbing. There's like a faucet and something there. This, I think, had a toilet bowl, so I didn't really like that. So I put this paper over the top of it. Here's another little envelope, glass line envelope, and I just decoupaged a piece of napkin onto it. There's washi here to kind of hold it together when I put that in. This is a little journal card that I made, whipped it together. This took like all of 2 seconds. This is just some little thread scrap I had, a little wood scrap I had, and I have this really cool like ATC size note cards thing I got at, I think, Hobby Lobby when they had one of their 50% off paper things, and those come in handy for making these little cards. This is another napkin I decoupaged on the other side. I also used a different stencil. This might have been the one that's not Stencil Girl. I think this is just some cheap stencil I got probably from, like, I don't know, AliExpress or something. But I used, again, that Nuvo Glimmer Mousse, really thin, with actually a stencil brush. So I used one of these stencil brushes, Waverly stencil brush, through the stencil to get those instead of scooping it with a palette knife, just to make it thinner. And I wasn't sure if it would stick on this waxy, but it sticks really nice. It doesn't come off. Here's a different decoupage. this little clip that's holding this other little thing in, I made too. I saw somebody make these and I thought they were cute, but then I was mad because like it feels weird to clip it that way. I suppose you could, but I really like clipping it this way. So it's just a paper clip that some little scraps of fabric and ribbon are sewn onto, or ribbon I guess, sewn onto. And then I have these little Tim Holtz tags, so I put that on with this little old-fashioned pin to hold this in. This I whipped together too. This is some lace. I have a big chunk of this lace. Put that on. All right, this is a little journaling block. Back in there, and then I'll clip it back in, and so it keeps it from falling out. Here's the other side of that music paper. Lots of washi again on here because this wanted to crack and fall apart on me. It's really pretty separated in the middle. This page I actually put in upside down. This was supposed to be a pocket, which is why I have this little washi up here. But this page got put in upside down, so I just sliced it back open. So now it just flips up. Here's that horse thing. Here's boots and more saddles. I have this stamp that looks like cup marks that I like to use in my journals a lot. Yep, so it was like whips. Here's the little pieces on the other side. Again, really nice for journaling on. Here's that cool butterfly stencil again. Then this is just regular copy paper. This is from, I got this at an estate sale. I got a bunch of these sheets. They were old McCall's art. But they're super beautiful, but they're really, really, really brittle. So I feel like this is giving this old art, original art, some new life. So I decoupaged this is a bag. Decoupaged the bag, stuck this down, and then put another layer of decoupage over the top. So now this is going to last, where before it probably would have just crumbled and died. See, hi Mom, you like the Genie K stamp too. It is pretty cool. This matched that other tag you saw earlier. This, I think, came with the swap that I did. The card inside, though, a little book inside I did make myself. It's just a piece of cardstock that I cut to fit and rounded the corners and did a little inking on the edges. So easy peasy. Somebody made this envelope just out of a dictionary page. Just kind of folded it up. Quick and easy. Fits inside here perfect. So it's kind of an envelope inside a bag, which is fun. This was that sewing paper again, using the impressibles and ink on it. There's stencil on here too, just to make that cool texture. This I bought a box of ephemera when I was first starting my journaling. And this is from a box of ephemera. Was this book from, I don't know if it's Japan or China. And then I did some inking on there. It's a little bit old and thin, so I put some washi on it. I did that sewing paper on the other side, not only to be able to write on it, but also to give it some strength because it was pretty weak and thin. That I just used regular old glue to hold down. This is a calendar I got on clearance after the year was done. I love to look at calendars when the year's almost done, and they have them at like 70, 80, 90% off. There's a lot of calendars you can get really good, cool papers from. I thought this was really cool and kind of fit that Japanese theme and kind of matched that color. This is just a chunk of it. The rest was stems and not quite as interesting. And calendars are fun to journal in too. I have one that I have all nautical knots that I have used in my Boston scrapbook and some other kind of sailing and ocean journals I've done. So these, I just love them for cutting up and using in journals, and they're real sturdy. I've even taken some and roughed them up to make them look less glossy. You could use, have used a fine sandpaper. You could also use steel wool just to rough them up. Here's another one of those little clips. So we'll slide that off. This little paper clip. Ah, I'm caught. I'm caught. So note to self on that one. All right. So here's just another one of those little paper clips I sewed together. And here's the other side of that bag. And inside of here, I made this book. This was just a chunk of cardstock I had, again with butterflies and the dragonflies. That was cool. I just tossed some paper in and literally just tied it in the middle. Like, so easy. This took me, I don't know, 5 minutes. I think it took me longer just to get everything the right size because I had to actually measure. But there's no book paper in here. You can see it's got the little divots, which I cut out. Some grid paper, and then this Celtic coloring book I also got on clearance in here, so that's fun. And then I just tied it closed with some different eyelash yarn. The eyelash yarn, I have this giant, probably like as big as this thing, well maybe like probably, I don't know, 12 by 12 or 14 by 14. It's a 31 bag, really. It's big. It's really that deep, so I don't know, maybe 12 inches deep. Full of skeins of different types of eyelash yarns. I had seen somebody in my local area who was selling their eyelash yarn, just like random pieces, random skeins. She'd probably worked on some projects and then had these skeins left over. And she was selling tons of yarn. And I said, how much would you charge for just the eyelash ones? So she said, for all my eyelash yarns, I'll sell it to you for $20. So I went and got this huge, she had it in a grocery bag. I have it in my, like I said, my 31 bag, but then I had a few extra skeins that are just packed up in my closet. But just like a grocery bag full of these awesome eyelash yarns for $20. And I've actually taken chunks of them out and sold them on Etsy. So if you're looking for fun eyelash yarns, I have almost any color you could want, including these mixed colors. This kind of texture, I have one that's like almost has a ribbon in between and then eyelashes on the edges. This one that I did the spine with. So lots of eyelash yarn. I think I have almost every kind, every color on my Etsy store. So certainly look in my Etsy store if you're in the market for eyelash yarn. And I'm selling it pretty cheap. I think 15 feet or something like that for a couple bucks, so pretty cheap. I sold, actually the black has been really popular. I've sold tons of the black eyelash yarn. And on the back of this little bag, so I had to cut the bottom of the bag open so I could have 2 bags. Sometimes people will cut them at the top. I chose to just cut it at the side. And then I just decoupaged that different napkin on there. Here's another one of these railway sheets because the back of this paper was just kind of white and boring. And then here's my back cover. So this is super fabulous. This again was that Decofoil paste and this rainbow, holographic rainbow foil that I have that I love. And this just really popped, I thought, on this like gray, silvery gray, charcoal gray acrylic paint that I used on the inside. So you can see, I love that. So there it is. This, like I said, took me maybe a weekend because I had a lot of the papers already done. I just had to jazz them up a little bit. Love the tags. Were tags I'd already gotten that I just found fit and worked and tossed in. It's really all the drawing that I had to let happen in between. So if you do some of these works ahead, like making these papers, sometimes this stuff just comes together. Like I just had this folder and this stencil and I said I'm going to make a book with it, and really the cover was by far the longest part of my creative process. So there you go. There's my quick thrown together, I'm calling it Late Summer Butterfly junk journal. Thanks.